In the rise of the 21st century, future analysts around every corner of the world have hinted to its citizens about the looming upcoming problems for cities. Big cities are expanding, meaning more people are moving in, energy is shrinking, and even finding a space for parking is getting harder. Thankfully, technology is there to help solve these problems at its behest. Small power plants like solar systems can produce their own electricity. Smart algorithms can help guide people on where to go through navigation and signal lights on the street. And computers are ready to assist with some tedious jobs that humans feel reluctant to do. The idea of using technology to make cities better is known as smart cities. Basically, the theme of smart cities is to make them fully sustainable and safe. Currently, more than 3 billion people live in cities, and another 3 billion are expected to move to cities in the next 40 years. So, the cities have to be smart and worth living in. Starting with the electricity supply of a city, it acts as a giant network of brain cells. So, how can we produce enough energy when resources are limited and people always need electricity? An economist and designer of futuristic plans, Jeremy Rifkin, said, "What has become clear in the last 10 years is that the second industrial revolution is ending. Fossil fuel energies are very expensive. We will not be able to obtain much more productivity from the Earth. It will soon reach its maximum potential." In 2003, a major blackout in New York stacked up to point out what life could be like in a huge city when the lights go out for a while. Instinctively, people tend to enjoy what is unseen. As such, people in New York partook in the excitement of the outage that lasted for longer than usual. But when the time was ticking and the blackout was hardly to pass out, people soon started to dive into anxiety because then they began to feel they were back in ancient times. Thankfully, there's some hope in these tough situations. Jeremy Rifkin has a clever idea to solve these problems. It's like a new kind of industrial revolution, the third one, and it's meant to help humanity out. He said, "In 1990, it became clear to me that we were on the cusp of a new convergence of communication and energy, a third industrial revolution. The great economic revolutions arise with the new energy regimes, and these make possible more complex societies. That increase in the flow of energy allows us to bring together more people, differentiate their abilities, integrate them into larger organisms, expand our economic potential in time and space. Back in the day, there were two big revolutions that would shape how we live. The first industrial revolution got its prominence through the invention of steam engines and mining coal for fueling them. Workers' residences were inside the vicinity of the factories, so the distance is just a walk away. Then, the second revolution came along with oil and combustion engines, meaning cars. That's when suburbs became a thing, and everyone started spreading out. We also got electricity and telephones, which made life easier. According to Rifkin, the world depends on fossil fuels. Our energy transports heat and is made of fossil fuels. So, in a sense, we have unearthed the remains of the coal age and transformed all that carbon coal, oil, and gas into the accessories, goods, services, and infrastructure for a great civilization. We built a short-lived one, but almost destroyed the biosphere with uncontrolled climate change. Rifkin also mentioned that instead of relying just on coal and gas, we should focus on using wind and solar energy. In his ideal city, every building would have its own renewable energy system to turn wind and sunlight into power. They could even store this energy for times when it's cloudy or calm. All these buildings would be connected to share energy. It will also create a community where everyone can give or take what they need. And of course, they'd use electric cars to explore this new energy system. We are actually using standard internet technology and transforming the electrical grid into a very well-distributed energy internet that works exactly like the internet. Jeremy Rifkin is quite experienced in crafting economic strategies. The guy has written a lot, and his works have been translated into many languages. He also knows a lot of important people, like leaders and influential men, who ask him for advice about the future. However, His appealing energy plan still faces some obstacles, both political and technological. In northern France, the abandoned mining areas show us that we've used up a valuable energy source. Mayor Jean-François Caron from Luçon-Gohel has something to say about this. For us, coal meant work, but also that men between 40 and 50 years of age died from silicosis, and it meant contamination. We do not deny that story, but that is already over. It had a very negative impact, and today we know that what we experience here at a local level is the same as what the planet is experiencing on a global scale. In Luçon-Gohel, the last mine was shut down back in the 80s, but Mayor Jean-François Caron had an ingenious idea to power the city, harnessing the sun. They built a solar power plant that now provides energy to around 30 homes. In fact, the church is not exempted from it, as it also had gone for renewable energy. By making buildings more energy efficient and creating eco-friendly neighborhoods, they managed to cut the energy bill by 3% in this low-income community. And the best part, going green also saves money. Among someone who spends $2,000 on electricity and it is cold in your house, and someone who pays less than $250, there is no point in giving a speech on ideology and sustainability. It is more practical. It is better than a salary increase. Looking at it from the start, using the sun for energy in northern France seems like a smart move. It's free. Plus, the town's eco-friendly projects were funded by subsidies. But Caron's goal is bigger. He wanted to show that this new energy approach works not just for the 7,000 people of their town, but for the whole region. The challenge now for us is to change. France spends millions on energy each year, whether on gas, oil, coal, or uranium, and that is sent abroad to the Arab Emirates or Russia. Imagine if we could take that money and spend it on insulating all the buildings in France. Jeremy Rifkin, renowned for pioneering energy solutions, was called upon by Nord-Pas-de-Calais' local council. Their aim? To rewrite their energy future, starting with more than just a visit to Gohel Church. After a year, Rifkin has a plan ready. Philippe Vasseur, who leads the Chamber of Commerce and Industry for the North France area, shared more about it. Jeremy Rifkin has an important role acting as a catalyst in this region. There are a certain number of forces, a certain number of initiatives, and if we want it to have force, it must be coherent. Rifkin aimed to make Nord-Pas-de-Calais a standout for new energy ideas. But could his plan work? Turns out, there's already a place like his dream city. It's in Hamburg's Wilhelmsburg neighborhood. Here, 12 buildings use sunlight for heat and electricity, linked through a special network. This setup allows buildings to share extra energy, especially on sunny days. Residents can even sell their surplus energy to neighbors, and if they don't use all the energy, it goes back to the main energy system and their meter goes backward. Sounds crazy? Yes, it's every consumer's dream. However, there's a string attached with this new energy system. Traditionally, energy systems were centralized, meaning that energy was generated in large plants and then distributed to customers. They faced a problem, predicting how much energy people would use once they started generating their own. This created a balancing act between energy production and consumption. To tackle this, smart technology stepped in to manage everything smoothly. Simply put, they installed fiber optic cables alongside the energy network. These cables keep track of how much energy each part of the network is using, and they can also measure the heat distributed by each customer. To make sure they have the right balance of energy, they use a computer network that sits on top of the energy network. These computers analyze data about how much energy is being used and produced, so they can send the energy where it's needed most and keep the network running smoothly. These advanced networks are called smart grids. This system is pretty smart, but they're still working out some technological issues. According to them, renewable energies like solar and wind power aren't always available when we need them. For example, we need heat even when the sun isn't shining and light when it's dark. So another big challenge is finding out how to store those types of energy when they're not being generated. In Hamburg, they're trying out all kinds of cool ideas. They have made curtains from eco-friendly plastic. These new ecological curtains absorb sunlight during the day and release heat at night. But even with costly attempts to store extra energy, much of it still goes to waste due to inefficiencies in storage or other technical challenges. Therefore, the sunlight meets only a small portion of the neighborhood's total energy requirements. So, what is the current situation regarding the change in energy supply in our neighborhoods? Some neighborhoods with advanced technology are starting to appear. They're not very profitable yet and haven't been widely tested, but major energy companies see them as promising for the future. On the other hand, in all neighborhoods, houses and public buildings are gradually being covered with solar panels and wind turbines to try to reduce electricity costs. These renewable energy producers are raising questions about the role of huge power plants. Rifkin said, "When I began to present this to the European business community and to the electricity and utilities companies, services, the electricity companies were not happy, and the majority still are not happy. I told them, get used to it. Millions of people produce their renewable electricity, and within 10 years, tens of millions in the world will produce their renewable electricity. If you have an electricity company and transmission, we will sell you the electricity, and you will manage the energy flows for clients." As we search for better solutions, the amount of renewable energy being produced is increasing rapidly. In fact, it doubles every 2 years worldwide, and Germany has just reached a milestone of 20%. With this rise in renewable energy, traditional energy specialists are adapting by using digital technology to incorporate these new energy sources into their networks. According to Marc Boyot, the Director of Strategy and Major Projects at ERDF, each year, the ERDF invests over €3 billion to modernize the network, a good part of which goes to smart grids, to the development of smart software, to the configuration of sensors, and the installation of remote controls. And we will continue this in the low-voltage network with Linky. Meet Linky, the eco-friendly meter that will soon be installed in every French household. It will keep the electricity grid manager informed about the exact energy usage of each household. This is the foundation of the new energy networks, which is going to change how renewable energies are integrated with digital communication. Rifkin also emphasized this point. Throughout history, when we look back, we see that the great economic turning points occur when new communication revolutions converge and manage the energy revolutions together to create a new platform, a new infrastructure for a new economic paradigm. And these paradigms not only change the economic way of organizing life, they change our patterns, our habitats, change our consciousness. They change how we organize our relationship with nature and with each other. According to him, the first two industrial revolutions focused on acquiring expensive and difficult to access energies. They created a society where wealth determined your place, a pyramid with the rich at the top and others below. This economic system is called capitalism. It's changing with the rise of the energy internet. Each building will act like a small power plant, allowing millions of people to generate their own energy. This change gives people more control over their energy, both in reality and in their daily lives. In Nord-Pas-de-Calais, where the first industrial revolution began, this signifies the start of a promising new chapter. Rifkin's plan for the region promises a complex power struggle. The estimated cost of this energy transformation is around €150 million over 30 years, which was funded by subsidies, savings, and private investments, mainly from digital industries. So there is already a significant presence of sensors in various systems and devices, and they have the potential for even more to be deployed in the future. These sensors play an important role in collecting data and facilitating communication between different components in the emerging energy internet and other interconnected networks. However, the lack of rules in this area means that the old companies will have to compete hard with new ones. Just like what happened in the telecom industry, the cost of electricity might change for these new companies. The energy internet offers new markets to explore. In France, Rifkin's plan is making people question the big energy company, EDF. This is like a new industrial revolution, no doubt about it. It's a big change in culture, and it's American, so it doesn't get how important the government's role is. It's focused on business, but it also talks about how producers and consumers can work together. It's saying that we're seeing a new kind of power emerging, one that helps us all move toward a better world. The Nord-Pas-de-Calais region is gearing up to show a new way of using energy. People and cooperatives there are excited about digital and energy innovations. We'll see the full impact by 2050. In France, the Asgrid neighborhood in Yulin is moving towards a future where buildings are connected in a grid pattern and cities are more digital. Big companies like Microsoft and Google are interested in this project. Esgrid, much like the Wilhelmsburg neighborhood in Hamburg, is a testing ground for major digital companies to try out their technologies. It's not just about electricity, it's about using data management to improve all aspects of urban life. These neighborhoods are equipped with sensors and automated systems, which basically shows cities are actually on the run of becoming smarter. The CEO of the Foundation for the Internet Nouvelle Generation said, "Behind this idea for a smart city, there is that specific intuition that there is a large amount of information in a city produced by the city, and that there is a lot that we could obtain from that we currently do not obtain, and that could help us understand it better, organize it better, and live in it better." That is totally true. And then there is the idea that the city is a large system, and that an omniscient brain could control every aspect of it in a very efficient and optimized way. And that is pure fantasy. In cities worldwide, traffic congestion is a major issue, and there's limited space for building new transportation and energy infrastructure. The smart approach for cities is to rely on precise digital data to improve traffic flow and maximize the use of existing routes. But how exactly do cities manage the movement of people, much like electrons in a network? In London, they introduced personalized transport cards that passengers swipe at the start and end of each journey, known as Oyster cards. This helps accurately track how passengers move across the transportation network. Geographer and city planner Michael Batty said, "Once we automate payment systems via smart cards here in London, the card will hear information when they are charged people are at our disposal. And that gives us an idea of how they are using the system at a certain point. The idea of a smart city is to actually take what is detected using these sensors and computers and interpret it so that we can make systems much better." Michael Batty created animated maps of cities for urban planners. These maps show how people travel within the city, especially during peak times like rush hour in the morning and evening. They are helpful for transportation authorities to understand and address traffic-related issues in the city. According to George McAnulty, Director for Development and Infrastructure Transport for London, the population of London is growing. Demand for the metro network is increasing. It is approximately 5% greater each year, and we must ensure that we provide sufficient capacity to be able to cope with the number of people who use the system. Now, the only way we can control that is with computer technology. We went from manually driven trains to computer-driven trains, after understanding where all the other trains on the line are in relation to it, and making very detailed adjustments to balance that. The London Underground now has an automated system controlled by a central computer. This system has increased the flow of passengers by 20 to 30%. Without needing to change any physical infrastructure. When simply adjusting supply isn't enough, they also adjust demand. For example, during busy times, they increase ticket prices by 50% to encourage people who aren't in a hurry or can't afford it to use the subway at different times. When the ticket machines run slower than usual, it's because they've been notified about overcrowding on the platform and are deliberately slowing down to manage the increase in passenger flow. In the control room, supervisors closely monitor the number of people to ensure it matches the available open doors for entry. Station signs play a crucial role in guiding people based on 3 key factors: their destination, preferred walking speed, and desire for personal space. This line describes how avatars, digitally representing people, are customized or adjusted based on certain factors, like the type of individuals present in a specific area, such as Oxford Circus. For example, a tourist might prefer more space and walk slowly, while a local might rush past others to reach their destination quickly. Once we create a model that matches real life, we can adjust the virtual crossing. This also helps us see how changes affect real people. We make small changes, like adjusting curbs or junctions at Oxford Circus. Algorithms suggest opening up the crossing and creating spots where people can wait. This makes crossings safer and more efficient for everyone. We believe it's very important that if someone sees a gap in traffic and wants to cross the street, they shouldn't have to wait for the traffic signal. Instead, they can use designated waiting points. These waiting points are designed so that when someone crosses the street, they aren't left stranded in the middle, worried about traffic. However, the pride of Atkins is the diagonal crossing. Every 2 minutes, all traffic stops completely, allowing pedestrians to cross the street at once, even around the corners. We expected people to walk through Oxford Circus about 50 seconds faster on average, and surveys have confirmed this prediction. A countdown timer encourages efficient transit, reminding people that time is valuable. Those who funded this project understood this well. It became profitable in just 6 months, and the $5.9 million investment was recovered through increased retail activity. According to the founder of UrbanScale, Adam Greenfield, I think looking down from above, like the look of birds or God, at these complex, flexible patterns of living, dynamic elements that are people moving through the city, is something beautiful. It is interesting as it is to see any complex natural system, but as a citizen, I do not believe that flows can be optimized. Cities are not about optimization, nor are they about efficiency. They are about friction. They are about disorder and complication, and rubbing against others' inhabitants the requirement that urban systems function optimally, coupled with the reluctance to feel that movements or pauses are supervised. How can we balance two different ideas of a city? One idea is a city where people move like robots, following strict paths. The other idea is a more chaotic city where everyone moves freely and spontaneously. When you talk to people who live in a city, they often say they need to get from point A to point B as quickly as possible. These are usually business people who need to move fast and don't want any delays. But city life is much more than just moving quickly from one place to another. People interact with their surroundings, enjoy spontaneous moments, and experience the city in personal ways. The challenge is to create a city that meets both needs, efficiency, and freedom. It's about designing spaces that allow for quick movement when needed, but also let people enjoy the city more relaxed. City planners and designers need to listen to the people who live and work in the city to understand their needs and desires. By doing so, they can create environments that are both efficient and enjoyable. Between complete chaos and total control, city planners are looking for a middle path. They offer personalized services to citizens while gently guiding their choices. But can we understand and manage all these individual movements on a citywide scale? In the past, people used taxi data to track city traffic. Now, thanks to smartphones, we have much more information. By informing users about these changes, we aim to influence their habits and alleviate heavy traffic. This is crucial for public transport operators who are managing restrictions and seeking alternative solutions. In London, drivers are charged €8 to enter the city centre due to congestion, while Paris is reducing the number of parking spaces available. Both cities are introducing vehicle sharing services that cater to individual needs and benefit the community as a whole. Bicycles are now a symbol of sharing in cities. In Paris, 1/3 of cyclists use a bike sharing system, and each bike is used by 5 different people daily. Inspired by Paris, 500 cities worldwide have launched bike sharing programs. These modern services show how network information can enhance daily life in cities. In Paris, The success of the Velib bike-sharing system has inspired other cities to start similar programs. The ability to grab a bike at any time and return it to any station makes it a flexible and attractive option for short trips. The widespread adoption of bike sharing shows how effective using networked information can be to improve city traffic. GPS, RFID, and other technologies are now integrated into everyday objects. Instead of a centralized control center managing everything, these technologies help us in daily, practical ways. Even cars, once symbols of freedom and individuality, are now being shared. Car-sharing systems have calculated new routes and offer efficient transportation options. Using shared vehicles instead of personal cars can replace up to 8 individual cars. This idea is popular among city residents who want city life perks without the expenses and environmental impacts. With the help of the internet and digital communities, sharing goods, services, and spaces has become easier. For instance, the collective workspaces allow independent workers to collaborate instead of working alone. Car-sharing services are gaining popularity as they offer convenience and affordability for urban residents. Instead of dealing with the costs and hassles of owning a car, people can use a shared vehicle when needed, saving money and reducing environmental impacts. Sharing isn't just about cars anymore. Nowadays, lots of folks share offices, tools, and stuff they need, which helps them work together and not feel lonely. Thanks to websites and apps, it's easy to find and use shared things, making city life more connected and efficient. 50 years after Flower Power, intelligent cities finally accepted Woodstock's sustainable and green utopia. According to Jeremy Rifkin, what we will really see in the next 40 to 50 years is the eclipse of capitalism. It will have a role, but it will be a simpler and smaller role with a marginal cost close to zero. Collaborative commons will become the economic paradigm because it is more suited to maximizing the opportunities of a world of virtual things. In big cities like London and Paris, we're seeing some of Jeremy Rifkin's ideas come to life. But while the city centres are becoming high-tech and eco-friendly, not everyone can access them. Paola Vigano, a city planner in Paris, warns that if everyone doesn't have access to these new features, it could create a divide between well-connected and less connected areas. She's working on a major project for Paris and believes that focusing too much on smart cities might widen the gap between the city centre and the outskirts, where life is less high-tech but more spread out. She also said, "When they say that more than half of the world's population lives in cities, it does not mean in cities in the traditional sense. More than half of the world's population lives in unclear urban conditions. That is urban life. So we must achieve projects and strategies for these types of cities." Paola Vigano's vision for Greater Paris challenged the idea of focusing all development on the city centre. Instead, she suggested promoting lesser-known areas outside the centre that are meaningful to different communities. Those areas, like waterfronts and ethnic markets, are rich in cultural significance. By strengthening connections between these points, Greater Paris can become a diverse and vibrant territory beyond the city centre. Meanwhile, Shanghai has experienced rapid population growth. In the last 25 years, its population simply doubled and hit around 23 million. To improve the connection between the city and its residents, local leaders are experimenting with digital villages. These initiatives aim to create more inclusive and connected communities within the sprawling megalopolis. Dr. Wen Tai, the CEO of Lujiazui Smart Community, Shanghai said, "The objective of smart communities is focused on the well-being of the population. Technology is not an end in itself, and we are not seeking to make a showcase for the neighborhood. What we want is for the inhabitants to feel and recognize that their quality of life improves." Mr. Gao shared an example of how residents and the local authority work together. They caught a bicycle thief using a combination of cameras, police work, and help from residents. But that's not the only impressive thing in this neighborhood with tall buildings. While the technology here is subtle, it's transforming community life. In a local health center, Residents are encouraged to check their blood pressure every 6 months. All the data goes to a central platform and allows them to track changes in the neighborhood's health over time. If someone's blood pressure looks concerning, they're contacted by their doctor right away, which will help them to prevent emergencies. In Lujiazui, people use technology for more than just checking their health. They can take classes or shop from their TV. Their ID card also works as a house key and lets them buy groceries or volunteer. This makes life easier and more connected for everyone in the neighborhood. But where does all this data go, and what is it used for? The information from the smart card is stored on the FK network computers. Mr. Jizhong Dong elaborated on the system perfectly. He is the vice president of FK Network Shanghai. He said, "We classify people according to certain parameters. For example, people in Group A are over 65 and live alone. If a person in Group A does not leave their home for 2 days, the software collects that. An alert is raised and sent to the neighborhood association that you can go visit and check that everything is fine." Mr. Dong's control center also oversees other groups of residents, like former traffickers or former addicts. If we see that a person from this group shows more activity than normal, the neighborhood association will also go to check if everything is okay. Maybe they notice consuming or selling drugs. We only report abnormal situations to the association so that they can then do a deeper analysis. Currently, the FK network manages data for 60,000 residents in Shanghai, but it aims to expand its services to cover several million people. For a system to succeed in China, it needs to meet 3 key criteria. First, the people must value it highly. Second, it must meet the government's requirements. And third, it must be profitable, as a lot of money is being invested in the project. The neighborhood community is helping to fund this expensive data management program. Additional funding is expected to come from personalized advertising that Mr. Dong plans to place on front doors, and eventually from the government, which can also use the data collected and the citizen categories derived from it. In London, surveillance rooms are similar to those in Shanghai. They're required to make all recorded information available to the public. This led to an opportunity for a band called Close to make a free music video by posing for city cameras. William Gibson once said that people find their own ways to use technology, even if it's not what the designers intended. This is evident in how people adapt and sometimes misuse technology to suit their needs. Some are concerned about the massive collection of personal data by urban systems. The data collected as we move around the city is like a fingerprint of our lives. Analyzing this data can help us understand city life better. However, there are concerns that it might be used by a central authority to control urban activities or predict how people behave together. Disorder can sometimes challenge established order. The digital world can shake up traditional norms, offering endless potential. While this viewpoint may seem complex and daunting, it can also be thrilling. In reality, technology affects neighborhoods differently than it does entire cities. Each neighborhood has its own pace of technological advancement, and people use technology in unique ways. What's most interesting to me is how technology influences the dynamics of neighborhoods and shapes the bonds and loyalties that form within them over time.